And yes, we are live here in the spoiler room. Thank you for venturing down the stairs, pulling up a chair, and sitting with us as we talk spoilers for films. And it is I Need a Hero. I'm a month here on the spoiler room, and we got a wonderful crew assembled to talk about yet another film that was intended to launch a franchise, but stumbled out of the gate, at least box office wise. So yes, we are talking tonight about Remo Williams. The adventure begins. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, sorry, no, I won't get into the music there.
Do you have that on vinyl? That soundtrack?
I need it on vinyl. I have it. I have the CD. I don't have the vinyl. I need the vinyl. Absolutely need Remo Williams. My birthday's coming up, folks. So, if you're interested, we can work something out. Anyway, tonight, my crew that is assembled with me are my fellow executioners. We have here with us the BFD himself, Mr. Glenn Bittner is back. Hello, Glenn.
Hello.
So excited I can tell that to be here, aren't you, Glenn?
In Korea, Korean people play Korean people.
Oh, I knew that was going to come up. And of course, she is here with us once again as well, the diva of the spoiler room. So happy to have her here to talk about this film that is definitely full of testosterone. It is none other than Dawn. Hello, Dawn. How are you?
Fantastic. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So glad you're here. And the book series that it's based off of is also dripping with testosterone, so I understand. So I never read because words burn, but all you fine folks do read, so that's why I have you on the show, because I'm an illiterate stepchild, apparently. But besides that, yes, my right-hand man, the man who's taken this journey along with me, it is none other than Mr. Ian Simmons. Hello, Ian. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. It's still jarring to you whenever I see Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins, based on the Destroyer book series. I'm like, yes. What? I have not read any of these novels, but I kind of want to, but I also kind of don't.
Very popular series. I
really
am understanding, right?
Oh, there are over 100 books in the series.
What?
Yep.
How have I never are these like grocery store action novels, or where do we? Are they still being published?
That's giving it way too much credit. I had a summer job at a book bindery, and we were printing one of them at the time, so I got to read part of it while working. I'm going to leave it at that.
You mean you had the chance to read the entire thing, but you only read part of it? Is that what I wanted to take that?
Just excerpts, and I'm like, this.
Now, here's a question: is Remo Williams the star of all of these? Is he the James Bond of this series, or is it the Destroyers at a mantle, as they say?
I think it's him in all of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I haven't read more than a third of one book.
But Don, have you read any?
Oh God, no. Once upon a time, I tried to read some of Ian Fleming's work, and oh hell no, I wasn't going to torture myself with the Destroyer series.
Yeah, so I've heard things too, which would explain a lot of the script of Remo Williams. Tonight, Dawn, you get the honor. See, I don't tell my crew members ahead of time who should give the synopsis. I like to leave it a surprise. So, Dawn, can you give us a synopsis of one Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins?
I can do it better than IMDb.
I'm sure you could. I'm absolutely sure you could.
Okay, so Remo Williams, The Adventure Begins. New York cop is recruited, officially killed and buried, and then plastic surgery to hide his original identity. A New York cop is recruited by an organization that does not exist called The Cure. This organization is made up of, gosh, I didn't write his name down aside from the Emperor Smith, Wilford Britney.
He's Harold Smith.
Yeah.
Yep.
And McCleary, who's played by J.A. Preston. And they have recruited Remo to be the 11th commandment. Thou shalt not get away with it.
Get away with it. Yes.
And then there's a whole lot of, racism, misogyny, and other stuff. But it's still fun.
Isn't that what's bothersome about this film is I'm watching it again going, this film is so problematic, but then there's parts in here I'm finding very entertaining in spite of it. And I'm like, I'm torn because.
Well, that's something I'm interested to talk about, specifically the issue of racism in the movie, because that was my initial reaction to it. But I thought about it after the movie was over, and problematic is probably the best word to use, but I don't know if I'd go so far as to call it racist. You do have a white guy playing a Korean, martial arts master, but it's not portrayed as a cartoon character, like a negative stereotype. I mean, he's sort of the smartest character in the movie. I guess this is a few years after Pat Morita kind of like set the world on fire as Mr. Miyagi, so they wanted to have their own version for this would-be American Bond franchise. But I'm not, what is it? The actor's name?
Joel Grey.
Joel Grey. I think he did a hell of a job. And, it's weird because he was nominated for a Golden Globe for this performance, and the makeup for this lost to Mask at the Oscars. So yeah, I don't know. I guess it's that whole sign of the times thing, but I'm watching this. I'm like, this is weird, but it doesn't bother me. It's not, what am I trying to think of? It's not a minstrel show.
It's not a minstrel show. His character, you're right, is the most powerful guy there. He's the most intelligent. I honestly think if they had cast an Asian actor for this role, it would have probably been a lot easier to kind of accept, because he gets some of the best lines. He has a personality. I mean, the actor does well in the role he's in. It's just mostly the fact he's in this role when he really shouldn't be. I mean,
well, but I mean, that gets back to my kind of fundamental question: is why should he not be in this role? I mean, I understand the kind of cultural insensitivity and all that stuff, but in terms of acting, he takes it on, and he takes it on, I guess, as a challenge, and he creates a very real character with this part. So I don't necessarily, and I tried looking up on Wikipedia because I know this is a very troubled movie for a lot of reasons, but I couldn't find anything, without doing too much deep dive because I have a life, as to why they made this decision to cast this white actor in this Korean part.
Yeah,
and not find someone else who would fit the part. I mean, if they had cast, say, just another Asian actor in this role, would that have played just as strange? Like, oh, we found a Japanese guy to play a Korean. We found a Chinese guy to play a Korean actor or a Korean character. Or, maybe they tried to find a Korean actor to play the part and they just couldn't. I don't know. I don't know the history of it.
Don't mention Chinese in front of Chun. You will get him upset.
Yeah,
that's true. Glenn, what do you think with Chun? I mean, the the guy performs, I think, well, and with the role he's given, what are your thoughts with that?
He performs fine, but it's still whitewashing of an Asian character.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just because they put him in makeup to make him look Asian, I think that's actually worse. It's. I mean, there's not a shortage of Asian people in the U.S., and especially in California, where they make movies. So, and as Ian mentioned, I mean, you just had Pat Morita in something. He's not the only actor of Asian descent, and I mean, I've heard mixed things on like a Chinese person playing a Japanese person and so on, but I think it's generally considered to be much less offensive because you're at least, in the right hemisphere. So,
well, I guess the ultimate question is, I mean, the sort of the elephant in the room is we are four mostly white and mixed race people talking about the offensiveness of a white actor playing an Asian person. I'd be curious to find out what actual, Korean people thought of this. Was there outrage at the time? Would it have been, widely publicized? Because I mean, it's fine to be outraged on behalf of a group of people, but if that group is not actually offended, they're like, well, at least we're getting some kind of representation on the screen that isn't just BS chopsocky. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I've read a lot on it, and mind you, this is more modern stuff. But I mean, it's
well, that's there you go.
But that's the thing, is that it's been a long-standing thing, going back, the entire length of motion pictures of white actors playing as other races, and it's I mean, aside from like the super offensive blackface and minstrel shows, it's just also the denying of these people roles that they could play. Because up until recently, like now you have like Hamilton, where you have all these quote unquote white people being played by people of color. For the most part, if you're doing any kind of movie where it's here's Joe America, it was always a white dude. And anything historical is generally, it was a World War II movie or a Western. It was always white dudes. I mean, for a long time, you even had white guys who played all the native roles too. They'd just be like, make him tan, and then look at that, now he's an Indian. So
yeah, that's true.
I think because it's just such a long-standing problem that there's a lot of actors who didn't get roles because these roles were given to white people.
Sure, but here's the question. Can you divorce the cultural reality of what was going on at the time from the actual work? I mean, can we watch, let's say Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins is a fun, campy, weird mid-'80s action movie, but we can't really discuss it because there's this giant problem at the center of it. Can we not enjoy it for what it is outside of this other factor? Especially acknowledging that the actor in the role did a really good job.
I mean, as you point out, it's not entirely my place to say whether you can or can't.
Well, I mean, it's nobody's place to say other than you whether you can or cannot enjoy something. I mean, I'm not going to say, oh, I can't enjoy this because it's not appropriate culturally. I'll enjoy what I want. It's mostly a matter of, personal taste.
I guess it's what you can accept.
So
go ahead, Don.
So in preparing for this, I actually read an article by an Asian gentleman specifically about this topic, and I have been trying to find that article again, but I didn't bookmark it or anything. And this author had said that growing up and seeing it for the first time, he loved it. He thought it was great. And it didn't occur to him until later to be offended by the yellow face and to be offended by the fortune cookie Confucius says type dialogue that the character Chen was spouting, even though it was hilarious, and it still is hilarious. It's a stereotype that was propagated, and it was the stereotype of how Asian people were expected to be in the 80s. And further, by the end of the article, he had said that he had finally was able to enjoy the movie now because he was able to come to terms with his own perception of himself and what he had lived through. and the cultural acceptance that is more so now than was back then. So just speaking for that article, I thought I'd share that with you.
No, that's cool. Actually, if you can find that article and drop it in the group Facebook thing, I'd like to read it.
Yeah, if I can find it, I definitely will. I don't remember what I was searching for at the time, but I agree. There's definite problems with things in this movie and in the book series.
Well, yeah.
But doesn't mean it can't be enjoyed. Not necessarily. Joel Grey is an absolutely phenomenal actor that would have been better had he not been in this part, had they cast somebody more appropriate. However, he did do a phenomenal job. Just not appropriate.
Well, I mean, and I think part of the reason why we're torn on it too is because of that. He does the phenomenal job, and it is right there that you're like, you realize you have this character, but at the same time, this character is one of the most charismatic and interesting characters in the film. That's the thing. And he, even though he has those tropes of, the Confucius say type of, accent and that, while he has that, he gets some of the best lines. There's actually a wonderful relationship between this character and Remo, which you don't expect to see developed between the two. That's actually in the middle of this very testosterone action-filled film. There's actually a little story there and a little feeling between these two that I find oddly touching. It's just the fact that Chun is, the embodiment of what had been, still is not as much, it's slowly turned, but it's still there, a running problem in Hollywood. And I think that's what sticks out for a lot. But like Dawn said, I still enjoy this film, and I enjoy his character because his character is badass. And I wanted to see a movie, if they should remake this, cast someone more appropriate in the role. Who, there's many talented Asian actors out there. I'd love to see more of the Chun character because he's the most interesting. I mean, you've got Diabetes who sits in his chair, you've got your cast of characters who are interesting, but Chun really is. It's almost like he becomes more of the focal point than Remo even at parts in this film. It's really interesting in a way, and so yeah, I just find his character. That's why I loved it when I watched this as a kid. I love Chun. I love the Chun character. I would quote him, more than anybody. Not.
Oh, he kept going to the principal's office more.
No, not in his accent, but he gets some of the best insults on Remo Williams, talking about his consumption of beef and such. You move like a pregnant yak and such like that. I mean, but no, I see the perspectives. And so, it's one of those things where we run into that we ran into this with Buckaroo Banzai as well, with the portrayal of the Rastafarians as the aliens. I mean, at least they cast more appropriate in that role, but still they were the very stereotypical Rastafarians in the film,
But that's an interesting point as well, because as much as the Rastafarians were stereotypical, as much as Chun is a quote unquote stereotypical Asian guy, there are people walking around this planet who are immigrants to America who have accents because they are speaking our language in their native, a version of their native tongue. Yeah, it's stereotypical, but it's also authentic to a certain degree. I mean, I think it's weird because I understand both sides of it as well, but I think there's been a lot of attention in, modern culture looking back on stuff from the past with a much harsher eye than, it's almost like an eye of condemnation to a system that was not trying to be outwardly offensive, but in its weird way inclusive, but just not in the right mode.
Mm-hmm. That's a good way to put it. And look at us kicking off this discussion about a weird action film and getting heavy, so heavy.
Yes,
in the room. But huh?
I was gonna say, and now I want to see a remake of this, and I want them to really mix it up, and I want Margaret Cho to play the role of Chun
or Remo Williams.
Remo Williams.
Well, I mean, if you want to have a Korean playing both roles,
there you go.
Let's
just get a Korean remake of Remo Williams. There we go.
Karimo Williams.
And John Cho.
Yeah.
And Bobby Lee.
Oh yeah, it'd be badass.
if you want to avoid the stereotypes, I think you keep Bobby Lee away from your movie.
Yeah, probably.
He does stereotypes for fun.
That's true. We talk about Fred Ward here, I love Fred Ward. I think, in all honesty, he's a bit of an underrated actor in a lot of roles. He's a character actor. Dawn and Glenn and Ian, we've talked about other films in the past with Fred Ward. Freaking Tremors, for crying out loud. Him and Kevin Bacon are brilliant in that. He's a very talented actor who, here's his chance to get a starring role in this action film. And yeah, they make him look different. They do that by putting a big old prosthetic freaking Al Pacino nose on him. Like, you're like, wow, that's not his nose. And a big mustache.
Let me confess something here. This is the first time I'd ever seen this movie. I was watching it a few days ago.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd missed it. But when I saw him in that opening scene, and then, because he gets killed and then resurrected in the hospital, and he's looking at a mirror and he's like, "What have you done to my face?" I'm like, what did they do to his face? Because when I see him as a cop, the only thing that stuck out to me is the mustache. I didn't even pick up on the nose, because that's just what I imagine Fred Ward looking like, kind of a cartoon character.
No, they added prosthetics, so they raised the bridge of his nose like an inch. I mean, if you look at it, it's almost like a character from a Dick Tracy movie,
Yeah, I needed a bit more. They need to do more of a makeup job like they did with Chun to make it stand out for me. I'm like, he still looks. If I saw both Fred Wards standing next to each other, one with the makeup, one with not, I'd be like, it's the same guy. What?
Yeah.
Bigger mustache, but
yes.
But I enjoy Fred Ward in this role. You can tell he's hoping that this becomes something bigger, doesn't he? Dawn, you can tell the way he's acting in this and everything. He's really into this role.
Very much so. And again, that was very likely part of the promise or the concept of this becoming a series. The American version of James Bond, which painfully, yes, you could see it in all the not good ways.
In all the not good ways. Yeah. I mean, as much as James Bond is touted quite a bit, if you start putting that under the microscope, there's issues there.
A little bit.
But yeah, Fred Ward, Glenn, what do you feel about Fred Ward in the role of Remo Williams?
I mean, Fred Ward's fine by me. I mean, Fred Ward is Fred Ward in everything he does.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm fine with him. I'm curious how it would have been if they had gone with one of their initial picks of a young unknown actor at the time.
Bruce Willis.
Yeah. Bruce Willis was almost Remo Williams.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, I had read that Ed Harris was also up for the role.
Yes. Because I mean, that was the thing. I mean, this is Remo Williams is they were trying to bill him as the blue collar James Bond, so you didn't want someone who was like super suave.
Mm-hmm.
You wanted someone kind of just that kind of normal American guy kind of attitude and that bit of swagger, which I mean Fred Ward has. I mean, if you just think, if you put a lineup of guys and you put Fred Ward in there and said, pick the Midwestern guy, you'd be like, yeah, that guy there.
Yeah. I like him in this role. I like his chemistry that he has with with the Chun character. Those two play off each other well. And then Wilford Brimley showing up in here. Diabetes. Glenn, what did you think of this organization, The Cure, and how they set these guys up? I mean, are these guys like? Do you buy into this organization of the old heavy set guy with the massive computer, and then the veteran, and then we get Remo?
Man, it's I don't know. Kind of. I mean, it's fine. I mean, I don't care if Monday's blue, Tuesday's gray, and Wednesday's blue.
Thursday, you don't care about you, but Friday,
I'm in love. Yes.
Yeah, you're in love.
I mean, it's fine. I mean, they're trying to do something, and I mean, in most movies, the secret organizations are kind of laughable.
Yeah.
No matter partly because they try to make it like so serious, like we're this secret group who does it. It's like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm not buying it with Quaker Oats guy there,
But the technology he had for 85, he had fucking live streaming on his CRT.
He did, yeah.
I mean, come on now.
I kept having to remember that we were supposed to be watching this stuff on this computer, because a lot of that we're just like full on like video of things happening. I'm like, oh, is this a cutaway? No, we're supposed to be watching this on his screen.
Yeah, well, I mean, Cobra did have the entire FBI database in his apartment, so I will always go back to that. So, same year, the technology was there, man, coast to coast even. Well, now I want Williams and Cobra to team up. God,
Remo Williams, Cobra, and Buckaroo Banzai.
I'm thinking it. Look, Glenn's like, what do I got here?
I think we just discovered the ninth dimension.
Trying to see if I can find my act somewhere.
Don, what did you think of Cure, which we don't even realize that's their name till like halfway through the film. They mention it offhandedly.
I didn't mind them. It seemed to like it seems like, well, for what now would be a typical trope, you have your tiny group of rebels, insurgents, whatever, ultra patriots that are protecting the country and the president without their knowledge. I don't know.
You don't really. It's like a side thought, isn't it? Almost like, oh wait, they have a name.
Yeah, it's like three guys. Well, four guys if you count the one hired to train Remo, because they never actually consider Chun as part of the organization. He's just there to train Remo. Because when they talk about it, they're like, it's just the three of us in this room and that's it.
Yeah.
Meh.
Well, they didn't want to let him know about Chun. They didn't want to let him know about Chun. So
that's true.
It's no worse than the Mod Squad. So.
Oh boy.
Well, there was five people there, so okay. But I was talking about the number of people in the organization, not who was in the group, Ian.
No, just mentioning the Mod Squad.
I'm sorry, bad. That gave me flashback. Yeah, I gave you flashbacks to that movie. Yeah. What about you, Ian, and the Cure? Did it matter that they even had a name, that these three guys?
Well, I mean, no. I mean, I just kind of accepted it. I was wondering if it was like an acronym like CURE or something, or if it was just like the cure for international terrorism or threats foreign and domestic, because this is, the main villain of this is a weapons manufacturer. He's like the evil Tony Stark, which I thought was kind of fun, down to having his name emblazoned on the weapons that are killing people. No, I thought it was kind of a fun villain. It's a very weird movie, because this movie is like 80% recruitment and training, and then the 20% they finally go up against the bad guy, and then it's kind of over. It's a long film for that, but I wasn't used to it. Like I said, this is the first time I've ever seen it. I can't remember a movie like this that I've seen, really. So yeah, I was there for it.
Yeah, and I am too. I mean, you could tell they spent that much time because they're expecting this to launch a franchise. You could see at least a trilogy. So this is your origin story for Remo Williams. The whole learning that there's bullet dodging that is done. Not a la Wanted. Where they curve bullets. No, they don't do that here. No, they just dodge bullets by listening to the tendons and the metacarpals in your finger. About to pull the trigger, which, I mean, I dug all that. It's a little bit of a superhero type story, and in a way where he's learning how to be very light on his feet to the point to where he's barely leaving trace in the sand, and he can, out of nowhere he gets the ability to light a twig, which comes into play at the end when he offs the big bad evil Tony Stark. Grave, and dodging bullets, and yeah, I mean, his character is fun, and you can tell they're going kind of for that superhero angle of sorts with it. But yeah, I think they committed a lot to the training because they thought for sure this was going to be, a hit. This was going to be a big thing, and they get these stars in it, and yeah, you've got a little bit of espionage. You got a little bit of superhero stuff going on. You got, actually, for a film like this, I love the action scenes.
Yes.
It blows me watching it again, because I've watched this many times, but it's been just a little while. Watching the stunts in this film are actually pretty awesome for what they're doing.
I have a big problem with heights, and watching Remo Williams on my laptop in my living room at 4 a.m. the other day, that Statue of Liberty scene, I was getting freaked the hell out, because you realize a lot of it is just camera work, and how effective it is to show an actor, rushing and like swinging his legs out, and then you switch to the perspective of the camera, like, oh, I'm hanging over the edge of this scaffolding or whatever. How effective that can be in creating a mood. I thought it was great. The payoff of the diamond in the tooth, that was a hand to mouth, oh my god, I can't believe I'm watching this moment of incredibleness. That because the two of Kate Mulgrew, who we haven't talked about yet, she plays an army, I think she's a major or something.
She's a major.
She befriends Remo Williams, Major Fleming.
Yeah,
and they get trapped in this sealed vault on a military base, and poison gas. It is very James Bond. And they've got the one, thug who comes in with the gas mask to like rough Remo Williams up because he's got a vendetta. By the way, that was that actor. I don't remember his name.
Kilpatrick.
Patrick Kilpatrick, great name. He was one of the guys from Toxic Avenger, which we were talking about a little while ago, in the restaurant. Yep. But I think he was the one who shot the dog, and he felt terrible about that for years afterwards. Not that they shot an actual dog, but just the gang.
The scene, yeah.
Yeah, but it was one of those genuine moments where I was wondering, how the hell are they going to get out of this situation? Because it does seem like an all hope is lost kind of thing. It's not that kind of movie, but you do have to wonder, okay, seriously, there's not a secret door or a lever or anything they can break because the glass is, bulletproof and all that. They use the tooth. I was like, of course, dummy. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, because, I mean, if you're going to mimic a James Bond film, you need the one minion who has some kind of special thing. Either it's Jaws or, with the hat throwing, and Mr. Ajab, or in this case, we have Stone, aptly named because he has a diamond in his tooth. I I love the diamond cutting part, because the very first time I watched that, I didn't see that coming, and when I saw that, I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. Of course, then when you see Williams jump, whoever was doing the special effect got a little bit early on the window, smashing, because it breaks like a few seconds before Remo actually gets through the window.
Well, it was the same force field that allows him to light the twig on fire and dodge bullets. That's what pushed the glass in early.
Blank, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What's the matter, Glenn? What'd you think of these action sequences, at least in our action film here, Glenn?
I mean, they're fine. They're they're fun for the most part. I mean, the whole fight scene at the Statue of Liberty, fun stuff. I mean, there's, after watching the whole movie, there's part of me that just wonders why they just have anyone other than Chun on their payroll. Like, you don't need anyone else. Like, oh, we can train someone to be half as good as he is.
Well, you don't want anything to happen to him, though, so you train the cannon fodder.
He seems invincible.
He seems invincible. Well, yeah.
He can literally run across a lake.
Yeah.
Well, because he knows where the rocks are. That's why. Or the board, in this case, because don't pay attention to the feet at all where he's running on the plank. They try. It's 85. Come on, man. I think it gives it a little bit of its charm. It's hokiness with walking across the. I actually like the scene where where Remo runs across the concrete, and the guy chasing him dives in, and I love. And it maybe this is the embodiment of New York, because you got the construction workers guy. They see him run across the top of concrete. They're like, oh, hey, the other guy, the bad guy, comes running in, sinks completely into the concrete except for his little. No one bothers to try to get him out. They just stand there and stare at the guy who just got fell.
Well, yeah, it's New York. They're like, not the only guy probably in there.
Well, also the construction workers that are on the take from our Mr. Stone to assassinate Remo Williams, they talk like Bebop and Rocksteady from the Ninja Turtles. They're like, hey, it's New York. This guy's not coming back. Let's go get lunch.
Or how about, Don, these three guys that are the hired hands to take out Williams? You get the one guy, we get like 4 shots. It's like they hired him for his evil grin only, and they made sure to get like at least 4 shots of him. What'd you think of our 3 construction worker hitmen?
That was definitely one of the more cartoonish parts of the film.
Yeah.
Were those 3, for sure.
They were. How'd you feel with these action sequences?
Oh, they were fun enough. I mean, I didn't find them any more preposterous than American Ninja.
And now my audience is wondering, wait, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
The answer is yes. No.
Exactly.
Yes. It is. It's a thing. Yeah, you're right. I will say the first scene where Remo Williams meets Chung, and we get to see the fight between the two and how Chung basically owns Remo. I enjoy that scene with the dodging. He sells it well. Ian, would you say? I mean, this first, because they got to establish how badass Chun is, and I think they do that in this scene quite a bit.
Oh yeah, I mean that's you talked about this a little bit earlier, but I mean one of the highlights of this movie is watching these two characters get to know each other and develop this kind of begrudging bond, because Remo Williams is this big dumb, well he's not dumb, but he's a gruff kind of New York cop, the blunt instrument, as Daniel Craig's James Bond would have been described 20 years later, and then you've got Chun, who's more worldly or otherworldly. Just, I love when he's talking about his the dietary restrictions that Remo has to go on in order to be his sort of apprentice. He says it would be better to eat this can than what is inside of it. I mean, that kind of sums up his entire character and the relationship. And I love that towards the end, this is something I might need to help you guys to help me out with, because I think I read this correctly, but Remo sort of leaves Chun towards the end of the movie before they're kind of reunited at that military base. But is the idea that at any moment Chun could turn on Williams and be the person who assassinates him? Because there's some kind of a like a not a betrayal, but this feeling that they can't be together anymore.
Well, it's because our guy Graves knows of their organization,
right?
So, and they talk about how Harold Smith is going to pop a pill, and McCleary is going to have his head blown off, and they're like, Chun has your number, and he's going on his mission. And I think the whole separation was he was going on the mission to get information about Harp, and I don't think he was packing up to completely leave. He was just headed out on his mission. I don't think it was like an end, but it did feel kind of like Remo wasn't coming back. But I think that was because if his mission failed, they would be outed, and so Chun would have to kill him. So maybe, it's a double thing. He was just headed to his mission, but it was also a mission to where this could be the final time where they're on good standing with each other before Chun hits one of his pressure points and kills him.
And that's sort of what I was getting at, was this idea that up until that point, Remo hadn't thought that this guy that he was training under and sort of getting this rough friendship going with would ultimately be someone who might have to kill him one day.
Yeah, it's
and possibly Chun wouldn't think twice about it. Like,
oh,
I've had other apprentices.
Yes, Smith wants me to kill him. Okay, there you go. He'll do the 5-finger death punch.
But later, when Chun is in that car and there's, the spectacular car wreck, and he survives and everything. But I thought, okay, this is the moment where, he gets Obi-Wan and, Remo has to do the rest of the journey on his own. But no, they stick it out through the entire film. I thought that was kind of unexpected and sort of sweet.
Oh, that's what I mean. It's weird, this relationship between Chun and Remo. You're not kind of expecting to see that between these two. And being the film, it's the 80s. You have a hero. You have to have a love interest of sorts. My son watched this with me. It's hilarious. We were sitting down to eat. I was going to watch Remo Williams. I warned him. I'm like, I'm watching this film from 85. He's like, I'll probably leave out. No, he sat through the whole thing, and he said the implied romantic thing between him and the Major, Kate Mulgrew's character, was not needed at all. And it's weird because I wanted to talk about her character, as well as, like, there's two female characters in this that actually have speaking parts in this entire film. There's Kate Mulgrew's Major, and then there's the badass female cop who's about to take it to Remo for choking Stone on the public street. But for Kate Mulgrew's character, I got the feeling like they wanted to maybe try to write a strong female character, but at the same time not make her stronger than Remo, because it seemed like she actually had some strength and attitude until Remo came about. Dawn, help me out here. Help me with my words, because I'm horrible with them. I know I've been doing this for so long, but still, you know what I'm saying with Kate? Did you feel like with this Major character, they weren't quite sure how to write her? I mean, she's strong one minute, and then it's like the next, she's like, oh, Remo.
She was, yes. I think the problem was they were trying to make a strong Bond girl that was that couldn't resist the charms of Remo Williams, and they couldn't make it happen correctly, because Kate Mulgrew's strong Major Fleming was actually a strong character, and she didn't really do a great job of being soft and fawning and google-eyed like I'm sure they wanted a Bond girl to be.
I mean, it's Kate Mulgrew. I could not see her in a role like that. You know, it's kind of weird seeing her like when she's being, snarky towards all the male generals who keep giving her shit because she's a female. That's the Kate Mulgrew. It's like that's her. And then when she meets Remo and on the military base, they just happen to cross paths right there, and she started and stares up to him closely. I'm like, I'm not buying it. She could kick his ass. I'm like, she could just punch him
for sure
right there. It was just a feeling. Glenn, what do you think with Kate Mulgrew's character? Did they not quite sure how strong or weak to make her? Did it feel like?
I don't think they just knew they didn't know what to do with her.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's as you said, there has to be. It's like it's the 80s, so of course. Well, there has to be a woman in here for some reason. We have to have a woman. What's she gonna do? I don't know. Woman stuff. But we'll make her a soldier. Okay. So then what's she gonna do? I don't know. Get yelled at by men.
Because she was trying to open the investigation up on our bad guy ahead of time.
I mean, I suppose in that way, it is a very common role a lot of times when you have a woman who's in any type of organization. A lot of movies, she's the troublemaker type.
Mm-hmm.
She wants to, it's always someone they want to investigate something. But, it's like the higher ups never want that. So
no, because they got their fingers in the pot, or the pot's got got the pot, their fingers in them. Wait, what? No, that's a different movie. No,
Ian, would you do an apple pie? I don't know.
It's warm and moist. Ian, how about you with Kate Mulgrew's character?
Once again, I'm going to be the voice of dissent in this group. I thought Kate Mulgrew was great in this role, and I thought her character was pretty solid all the way through. I was expecting, because it's the era that we're watching, that she was going to be, as was described, the soft kind of fawning Bond girl. And I don't think that's what they were going for with this, because they could have very well cast any, 22-year-old blonde, big-breasted woman in, a shirt that's popping out. You could think of what they did with Stripes, a couple of years before this. But they didn't. Kate Mulgrew was 30 when she made this movie, so she's definitely beyond that kind of bubbly range. I don't know if she was ever bubbly or if she could be, but she was strong. She was assertive. She followed orders, up to a point, because that's what you do in the military. But she still let her displeasure be known with her senior command. And when it came to Remo Williams, it wasn't an instant he shows up and she starts going gaga for him. He shows up. She assumes that he is someone else, someone who is a high-ranking, sort of a secret, almost like the secret military oversight committee who's there to help her in her investigation. It comes out later that that's not the case, but by that point, they've already cheated death, I think, twice. She develops an attraction for him, which I think is fine, because here's a newsflash: sometimes people are attracted to each other.
No,
and it's not like they ride off. They don't ride off into the sunset together. She's left there with the rest of the military on that beach as Remo and Chun. That's the real love story of this movie. They ride off into the sunset together. So I think she's, for the time, I think this was a pretty progressive character. Well said. Well said.
So I did not expect a film like this to have such wonderful debates. This is awesome. No, I see both sides. Like I said, I guess I took it. I just didn't like the parts where, I understand people are attracted to him, but it just seemed a little bit like instant. I know they were the sudden death and moments, but there were parts where she was near the end where she became more the damsel. Than it felt like when Remo was there, she didn't seem quite as strong as when she was on her own, I guess is way I saw it.
Well, but by the time, I understand where you're going with this, Mark, but the other thing to consider is it's not like the Mary Jane character from the Spider-Man movies where pretty much the entire point of her character is to fall into these situations where she needs to be rescued by Spider-Man. At the climax of this movie where Remo and Fleming first meet each other, which I just realized her last name is Fleming. I wonder if that's sort of an in-joke to Ian Fleming, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Yeah. But they meet each other during the climax of this movie, and both Chun is put in peril, she's put in peril, Remo is put in peril, when he's hanging from that tree. They all get kind of overwhelmed by this rogue military apparatus that's coming after all of them. So it's not like they have a scene where she's tied up and she conveniently, all of her clothes get burned off, so she's in her bra like strapped to the railroad tracks and one nipple's hanging out. No, they don't do that.
That's true. It's a fair point. It's a fair point. And I'm glad you mentioned the tree, because our man Grove, who makes weapons, is a far more horrible shot than Tony Stark, because this man, okay, folks, during this wonderful action sequence, Remo's on the run, and they start exploding the woods, because we all know that the military, when as part of a deterrent for people who trespass, they have just hidden explosives all over the mountain that they could just detonate whenever possible. But Remo lands, he jumps off the cliff at the light explosion, lands on this pile of pine twigs, and he ends up on this log. And then the log gets up in the air, and our bad guys in their Jeep see it. And first, the soldier doesn't want to shoot at Remo, so Grove, being the evil guy he is, shoots at Remo on this log that Remo doesn't move for cover. He's just on the side, and all the bullets miss him. He's got such plot armor here, and then he runs out of bullets in his M16, Glenn, and he goes to the big 30 cal or whatever, and he still misses. What the hell, man?
Well, the reason he missed is because he was aiming at pre-nose job Remo Williams.
Oh, I see. Yeah. That was if it was original pre-nose job and big mustache Remo, he would have shot him dead.
Yeah.
But since it's Chung trained Remo, he was able to microscopically dodge the bullets coming at him. Which, though, in this final scene where how he takes out the bad guy, because he's got to make it look like an accident. And I thought about it, and it's like the first time watching this film. I've watched this 20, 30 times over the years since I was a kid. It's the first time I realized he does make it look like an accident that the guy blows up, that he's not actually murdered. There's this wonderful scene, and it goes along with the other stunts. We have many physical stunts in this, folks. These aren't people in front of composite screens, at least. You look at the stunt crew that was in Remo Williams. These guys are actually doing these stunts. There's a guy during the chase at the Statue of Liberty who's literally hanging on a pole, in midair, and it's he must have had a camera strapped somewhere, because whoever was the cameraman to shoot that footage, I think they must have strapped the camera to the pole and just wiggled it, because I'm I couldn't see a guy with a film camera going, okay, I got the shot. Get me off this pole. Hey, guys, get me off. No, and that's lunch. No, it's not lunch. Get me off of here. Anyway.
And a certain director saw that and said, you know what? I could use that in one of my movies and have guys drop onto cars by being on poles like that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I love that movie. What a lovely day. But
what? I was talking about My Fair Lady.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I forgot that part in My Fair Lady. That's right. Yeah. She gets up on a pole. Never mind. Anyway. No, in the climax, though, Remo is hanging on this huge log that's being, for whatever reason, we don't quite know, it's being transported. They know someone is on the military. Don't think too hard, folks, because he's on the military base. There's someone's on there. but now's the time when we need to do some log moving. So they lift the log up in the air. They realize he's up there. And so to take out the bad guy, he notices the Ewoks left behind this pile of logs on the side of the hill. In a very dramatic fashion, he releases this huge log down to let the logs go to knock the Jeep off the road. It's spectacular for a film like with this budget and that and how it's going. This is actually a spectacular scene of that big log. They actually drop this big log into the ground, and it's like not miniature at all. And and then we get his face off and him doing a poor bullet dodging. You're just like, no, you're not Chun. Why are you even trying? Why are you even? Don't even do the arm thing. The arm thing doesn't help Remo. But anyway, I thought that stunt was impressive, and mad props to the stunt team. Don, what'd you think of this climax of how he takes out the bad guy and does the whole Ewok log thing?
I thought it was pretty creative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely was underwhelmed by the bullet dodging. Fred Ward definitely does not have Joel Grey's talent with dancing.
No.
A little bit harder to sell that one, but yeah, I liked it. Definitely came across as the accident it was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Glenn? Is this is kind of a spectacular finish for you for the bad guy, or does this kind of a lackluster ending for you?
I mean, it's.
Did you enjoy this movie at all, Glenn?
When I originally saw it, I did. Going back and rewatching and revisiting it, there's a lot that I didn't enjoy as much.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's a bad movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's fine.
Just didn't age well.
I don't think it did. But I mean, I think part of it is it's a hard thing with movies like this that are on that kind of campy side. When you saw it as a kid, to then see it 20 years later, to still have the same feelings about it that you had when you were what, I was 14.
Yeah. So
it's hard to still have those same feelings, just because I don't know, if my tastes have changed, or just I'm not as easily impressed as I was back then, or just that. I mean, and I suppose for 85, this was not like there's some interesting scenes, and stuff like that. So it's not like it was poorly made.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It just, I would probably say, it didn't age well for me.
And what about you, Dawn? Does it still hold entertainment for you, or did it not age well?
It still holds entertainment for me. It's extremely dated. I mean, there's no way around that. Everything about it is so dated because it relies so heavily on the technology of the time. It could be updated better. This would actually be a movie I wouldn't mind seeing be updated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially now with the John Wick being pretty much its own action film genre. I've started to see, now that we've got a few other films coming out, like, you got Nobody and you've got Gunpowder Milkshake and stuff. And I've seen a lot of people start tossing around the idea that a John Wick genre. I wouldn't mind seeing a John Wick-esque type of film, but involving Remo Williams. I think that might be fun, in a way, in that world still with that organization, those characters and everything, but just like not John Wick, because John Wick's John Wick, but that type of hyper action scene with it, I think could be interesting with an updated version of this, and probably be a little more well balanced. I could see that. I wouldn't mind seeing it as this one could definitely use a remake. What about you, Ian? Just your first time watching it, even though it's in 2021 lens, were you entertained at least?
Oh yeah, hugely.
Yeah.
I was really, won over by this movie. First, I want to correct something that we were talking about earlier. There are 112 books in this series, not just 100, 112.
212.
Yeah.
But they're only like 30 pages long, so you're okay. No, just kidding.
Sorry. Yeah, I don't want to see this remade. It's because I think what would happen is someone will get a hold of me. Oh, this is that cheesy movie from the 80s. Let's make a cheesy action comedy franchise out of it.
Yeah.
And this is, it's a funny movie, but it's more along the lines of that James Bond and not so much the campy Bond, just an action film that has some, touches of humor to it. Yeah, I don't know who they'd get to play, Remo Williams. I think that's a very particular kind of part. I'm not opposed to it. I just don't see right off the top of my head how it would work. I wouldn't trust the people making it.
I could see that. I get what you're saying, because they would just be apt to, oh, look, cheesy remake, so we're just going to make it a ha-ha cheesy, amped up, ha-ha funny remake, rather than doing a serious remake, which Hollywood, you can do for a campy film. You can still make it a serious remake, and I wouldn't mind seeing that, because some of those campy films are only campy because they didn't have the budget or the resources to actually make the serious film they wanted to make.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing them in this world, maybe giving it an update, and of course 2020 lens and all that. But I think there's potential here for sure. I mean, especially if we could get scenes with the dogs, because on one hand, the Doberman scene, as ridiculous as the dog scene is, on the other hand, I love the fact that Remo Williams breaking in to try to get the evidence that the HARP Star Wars-esque satellite is just fake. His big thing is he doesn't take on a big baddie. He takes on 3 very smart Doberman pinschers. I love these dogs.
Well, it's a great scene because as kind of funny as it is, it turns out the dog's really smart. There is I got this weird moment of terror when I'm in Remo's shoes, watching this dog run upstairs and then come across on the scaffolding like, oh, this thing's actually coming for my head. I thought I was safe a second ago, and now what am I going to do? Yeah, and then he gets rats in his pants. I mean, that is sort of a very Indiana Jones moment with the, instead of snakes, it's Dobermans and rats. But, it's still fun.
No, I love the Doberman scene. My son laughed when the 2 Dobermans grabbed the fire escape ladder to pull it down. But I like that. That's Bond-like, right?
A little bit,
in a way. Dawn, did you like the dogs?
They were fun enough.
Yeah, they didn't take away from the film. Did you make it too goofy? Did you?
No, I mean, this film tried to be everything.
That is true. It did try to be everything. Glenn, I think, is nodding too. They did try to put everything in the kitchen sink in there, Glenn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Including walking on water. So you've got it all in here, folks. So take it as you will. Thank you, Lee. He sat and listened to us talk about this interesting action film that is definitely a product of its time, but it's got an interesting cast, and for me, the nostalgia of seeing Orion pictures at the front of any movie for some reason just sparks the twinge of nostalgia. Even more recently, since someone brought Orion back, we were in the theater and I saw the Orion. I forget which one it was for, but maybe it was for the Chucky remake or whatever. But I'm like, wow, this takes me back to my childhood. Seeing the Orion side. So maybe I'm just a kid again when I watch it, because I did watch this many times as a kid. And we have to just mention before we close up shop tonight, Craig Safran's soundtrack, dun, 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 the signature blaring. And if that sounds similar to Last Starfighter, there's a reason for that.
Yes, is it the same composer?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Wow. All right.
That's his style. I mean, the very bombastic wins. Yeah, you could probably blend the 2 soundtracks together.
I gotta say, just that one little beat that you so gloriously recreated there, that got me riled up when I heard that. I'm like, I miss these sort of John Williams-esque, like distinct, crazy, stirring themes from movies. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's. I mean, you hear it multiple times, but it was. I think that theme was used also elsewhere, wasn't it, Glenn? Do you remember? I mean, they used kind of that same. It seemed to be pop up at least in trailers, like for a few years.
Yeah, I think so.
Did you like the music in this, Glenn?
I mean, it's nice that there was, I mean, anything that isn't a Kenny Loggins soundtrack from the 80s is welcome.
Kenny Loggins or Huey Lewis. If you don't have them on your soundtrack, it's already in the plus column. No, we're looking at you, Caddyshack. Anyway, so hey, I'm all right. Nobody worry about me.
We all worry about you, Mark, a lot.
I know. But I thank you, my crew members, for a wonderful discussion that I did not expect it to go where it went, but it went to beautiful places. And as always, folks, this is where I give my crew licenses to shill. So please, Ian, you're first. Shill away, please. Let us know where they can find your stuff at.
All right. Well, I'm Ian Simmons. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com. I'm also on YouTube. You can find me at probably Kicking the Seat YouTube channel. Just look it up. And I do a couple of shows there every week. I'm also here on Tuesday nights with this lovely crew. And on Wednesdays, I'm doing, while it's on, I'm doing a Loki Disney Plus Marvel recap show at 9 p.m. Central. So join us live.
Should be. It's very interesting. Caught the first episode of that, and there's a lot of things to talk about with the Loki series for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Glenn, why don't you go ahead and plug your stuff? You got that wonderful TikTok channel which people need to check out.
I first want to point out,
yes,
if this was not intentional, I'm surprised, because I think it should have been of them when they switched Loki to Wednesdays, which is Woden's Day, Odin's Day. I'm like, if that was not an intentional thing, that is the best coincidence ever, because of the fact that I'm like, Loki pretending to be Odin? Yes, this is. I thought when someone said, why is it on Wednesday? I'm like, oh, that makes perfect sense. It has to be intentional. If it's not, it's just lucky genius, I guess. And for me, you can find me, Games in a Bunker, on all the socials, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, not Tumblr or MySpace, because
you're not that old. No, just kidding.
I am that old. I probably have a MySpace page out there somewhere. So.
I think we all do at some point and just forgot it. It's got like 800
I
fans.
would not be surprised there was a MIDI version of So.
I love Craig Safford. I love his music. Come on, it's very fitting for here and for Last Starfighter. Dawn, what about you? Got stuff to shill?
Well, sometimes you can find me at intheaudience.net, but mostly going to talk about the upcoming, as of yet unnamed, Horror Film Fest in downtown Oshkosh at the Time Community Theater, the second weekend of October.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they're going to be. It's going to be an interesting one. First one since pandemic. Last year they kind of curated one. We're able to cobble something together this year, kind of finding its feet and a bit of a new identity for the fest in Oshkosh. They still want to keep the tradition going of indie films. There's a very large community there that actually supports indie films. So just kind of feeling our way out, but definitely want to check that out in October, second week. Excellent, Dawn. Thank you so much, all three of you, for keeping things civil yet spirited. I love everyone's perspective here for sure. I hope everyone here has listened and enjoy it. And don't forget, if you're at all not watching Black Widow on July 9th at 7 o'clock Central Time, we're going to have an AMA here on the YouTube channel. I'm not sure what I'm fully doing yet. Some commentary on videos I've posted in the past and whatever questions you might have. I'm going to allow crew members to just pop in and out whenever. It's going to be kind of loose, like the way I play everything. and like my one brain cell is. So please, 7 o'clock Central Time. And I've got a couple other things in the hopper I can't quite announce yet, but look for something to where you'll be able to bring the final cut and possibly the spoiler room and even Special Mark Productions anywhere you want to go. So we got some things lining up here. So just keep in touch for that. Look for that. Check out all this stuff. And yeah, thank you so much for watching and listening. And now we'll just say good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh, but remember, the watch was just a confidence device invented by the Swiss.
Fine words of wisdom to end that on.
Yes.